They have the body of a bear, the face of a raccoon, and the daily routine of a sleepy toddler. Meet the giant panda, one of the weirdest, most beloved animals on Earth. They're clumsy, quiet, adorable, and absolutely confusing, because somehow they're built like carnivores, but survive almost entirely on bamboo. And that's just the beginning of what makes them so strange. Let's start with their diet. Giant pandas eat for up to 12 hours a day. That's right, half their life is spent munching on bamboo. They consume up to 40 pounds of it daily. Stalks, leaves, shoots, roots. But bamboo is low in calories. Really low. So pandas eat more. And poop more. A lot more. How much? A healthy adult panda can defecate up to 100 times a day. That's not a joke. And here's the weirdest part. Despite being in the bear family and having a digestive system made for meat, pandas barely digest the bamboo they eat. Most of it comes out looking exactly the same. So why do they eat it? Blame evolution. Millions of years ago, pandas lost interest in hunting. Maybe it was competition. Maybe it was isolation. Whatever the reason, they became plant-eating bears. And to survive, their body had to adapt. They developed a pseudo-thumb, not a real thumb but an extension of the wrist bone, that helps them grab and strip bamboo with surprising skill. It's not quite a hand. It's not quite a paw. It's pure panda engineering. But life isn't easy when you depend on bamboo. Because when it's gone, you're out of options. Pandas rarely migrate far. They don't store fat well. They don't hibernate like other bears. And bamboo doesn't grow everywhere. Worse, it blooms in cycles. Once it flowers, the plant dies, and it can take years to grow back. If that happens across an entire region, the pandas are in serious trouble. Today, wild pandas live only in the mountain forests of central China. Their habitat has shrunk. Roads, farms, logging, climate change. Once, pandas roamed much of China, Vietnam, and Myanmar. Now, they're squeezed into just a few remote regions. And each group of pandas is often cut off from the others. That's bad news for an already endangered species. Because without genetic diversity, they face a whole new risk: inbreeding. And if you think pandas are weird when they eat, wait until you learn about how they reproduce. First off, they only go into heat once a year, for about 2 or 3 days. That's your entire window for panda romance. And when it happens, pandas can be picky. Males and females sometimes refuse to mate, even when they're healthy and fertile. In captivity, some pairs ignore each other completely. Others fight, or just sleep. If you've ever felt awkward on a date, just know that pandas have it worse. And when a panda cub is finally born, it's one of the most vulnerable babies in the animal kingdom. A newborn panda weighs about 3 to 5 ounces, smaller than a stick of butter. They're blind, hairless, and completely helpless. To protect them, mother pandas are extremely attentive. They cradle their cubs constantly, rarely leave the den. Sometimes they don't eat or drink for days. The connection between a panda mother and her cub is powerful. But in the wild, it's also fragile. One missed meal, one landslide, one broken patch of forest, and it's all over. That's why conservationists stepped in. Across China and in zoos around the world, people began trying to breed pandas in captivity. But it hasn't been easy. Pandas aren't just fussy, they're unpredictable. Some don't want to mate, others don't know how. And many cubs born in captivity don't survive past the first few weeks. But there have been victories. In research centers like Wulong and Chengdu, experts have learned how to assist with breeding, track hormone levels, and even use artificial insemination when natural mating fails. They've learned how to mimic a panda's natural environment, how to stimulate maternal instincts, and how to raise twins, something that almost never happens in the wild. Thanks to these efforts, the panda population has grown from just over 1,000 in the 1980s to more than 1,800 today. And in 2016, the giant panda was officially downgraded from endangered to vulnerable. It was a major milestone, proof that global conservation can actually work. But we're not in the clear, because for all the progress, wild pandas still face a hidden threat, something we can't breed away, something we can't ignore, and if we don't act fast, could undo everything we've worked for. For a while, things were looking up. After years of research, rescue, and rehabilitation, panda numbers had started to rise. Cubs were being born in zoos, growing up in protected reserves, and getting names like Miracle, Hope, and Peace. It was a conservation success story. But behind the smiles and headlines, a harder truth remains. Saving pandas in captivity is one thing. Saving them in the wild, that's an entirely different battle. Giant pandas live in only one country on Earth, China, specifically in a few misty mountain ranges, covered with bamboo forests. These places are quiet, cool, and remote, the perfect home for a shy, slow-moving bear. But those forests are shrinking, and they've been shrinking for decades. Why? Because of us. Roads, railways, farms, logging, climate change. All of it cuts the pandas' world into pieces. Tiny islands of forest, separated by cities and concrete. This leads to what scientists call habitat fragmentation, which means pandas may have bamboo, but not enough space to roam, to find mates, or to escape danger. Imagine being stuck in your room, your food delivered through a slot in the wall, and never being able to meet anyone new. That's life for many wild pandas. Even with conservation zones and national parks, many panda populations are still isolated. In fact, over 60% of wild pandas today live in small, scattered groups, and that creates a serious risk. In breeding, with fewer mates to choose from, genetic diversity drops, weaknesses multiply, diseases spread faster, and future generations get more vulnerable. That's why conservationists say, saving pandas isn't just about more pandas. It's about connecting the pandas we already have. But it's not easy to reconnect fragmented habitats. China has begun building wildlife corridors, natural highways of forest, that allow pandas to move between protected areas. They've planted trees, moved villages, built bridges that pass over roads, not for cars, but for bears. It's an ambitious plan, but it'll take decades to complete. In the meantime, scientists have focused on something just as difficult: reintroducing captive pandas into the wild. It sounds simple on paper. Raise a panda in a safe, controlled space, then release it back into nature. But pandas raised in captivity aren't always ready for the wild. They don't know how to avoid predators, how to find new bamboo, or how to choose mates. Some don't even know how to climb properly because they never had to. In 2006, a panda named Xiang became the first captive-bred male to be released into the wild. For months, he was tracked and monitored. But one day, the signal from his collar went silent. Rangers found his body days later. He'd been attacked by wild pandas, territorial males who didn't recognize him as part of their group. It was heartbreaking and a harsh lesson. Nature doesn't do favors. Still, the program didn't stop. Instead, it evolved. Today, young pandas in breeding centers are raised with minimal human contact. Caregivers wear panda costumes, avoid using human voices, and create more natural surroundings. They teach the cubs to climb, to hide, and to trust their instincts. The goal isn't to make cute zoo animals. It's to create wild pandas, real ones, and it's starting to work. Some pandas have been successfully released. They've found bamboo, made dens, and even mated. But each success takes years of planning and comes with enormous cost. Because truth is, pandas still face one silent threat. No breeding program can control climate change. As temperatures shift, so does the bamboo. Entire hillsides could lose their plants. Other forests may become too hot or dry. And since pandas rely on bamboo for 99% of their diet, even small changes in climate could have massive consequences. Some scientists fear that within decades, large portions of panda habitat will become unlivable. And here's the scary part. We won't see it happening in real time, because pandas don't scream. They don't migrate in massive herds. They just disappear, one by one, forest by forest, until there's no one left to count. The question isn't whether we can breed more pandas. It's whether we can give them a home to go back to. Because if we don't act now, all the babies in the world won't matter. We've learned that pandas are weird. They eat bamboo like it's a lifestyle. They poop constantly. They're shy, stubborn, and famously picky about who they date. But behind the quirky charm lies a species on the edge. Not just because of shrinking forests, not just because of slow reproduction, but because of something much bigger, something we're all a part of. Climate change. It's not just melting glaciers. It's shifting ecosystems, one tree, one valley at a time. And in the mountains of China, it's changing the future of pandas. Pandas rely almost entirely on bamboo. But bamboo is a delicate plant. It grows in tight conditions, just the right rainfall, temperature, and elevation. Even slight changes to the climate can affect when it sprouts, how tall it grows, and where it survives. And here's the problem. Bamboo doesn't migrate quickly, and neither do pandas. If a forest heats up too much, bamboo can disappear. And if bamboo disappears, so do pandas. That's already starting to happen. Some lowland bamboo species are dying out. Other regions are seeing synchronized flowering, where massive patches bloom, then die off all at once. It's natural, but in a changing climate, it's unpredictable. And for an animal that eats 99% bamboo, a single failed cycle could be fatal. And it's not just about food. Climate change affects water supply, hibernation patterns of other species, insect populations, and even disease spread among wildlife. Pandas live in a tight ecological bubble. When that bubble bursts, we don't know what happens next. So why should we care? Why save a slow-moving bear that won't eat anything but plants and doesn't even roar? Because the fight to save pandas is about more than pandas. It's about preserving the ecosystem they represent. Pandas are what scientists call an umbrella species. Protect their forests, and you protect hundreds of other animals that live there too. Red pandas, golden monkeys, crested ibis, rare frogs, birds, and insects. You're not just saving one species. You're preserving an entire world. And there's something else. Something not in the data, but deep in our hearts. People love pandas. Kids write letters to them. Grown-ups cheer when cubs are born. Tourists fly across the world just to see them nap. They bring people joy and hope, and sometimes that's enough to start a movement. Thanks to the global love for pandas, China created over 60 panda reserves. Illegal logging slowed. Awareness grew. Billions of dollars were invested in conservation. That doesn't happen for every species, but it happened here because the world saw something worth protecting. Still, there's work to do. Pandas need connected habitats. They need stable bamboo, and they need us to keep caring. We can't assume the problem is solved. We can't treat the vulnerable status like a victory parade. Pandas are still at risk, and without continued support, we could lose everything we've gained. In a quiet forest in Sichuan, a panda cub wakes up. She yawns, stretches, and chews her first stalk of bamboo. She doesn't know she's rare, or protected, or that hundreds of people worked just to give her this moment. But she's there, alive, free, and that is something worth fighting for. So the next time you see a panda video, don't just smile and scroll. Remember what it took to get here, and what it'll take to keep them here. Because in the story of the panda, we don't get to be spectators. We're part of it now. If this story inspired you, if you believe animals like the panda deserve a place in our future, like, share and subscribe to Secret Animal Kingdom. We tell the real stories of nature, not just the cute, but the complex, not just the fun, but the fight to protect what matters. From the bamboo forests of China to the far corners of the animal kingdom, we're bringing these voices to life.